Okay, kids, here we go. When last we left off, I had just glued up my necks. Here you can see all four of my necks are glued up, ready to go with my tenons. They all look great. I'll surface these, and we'll talk about that after a while. But there's basically the four necks. So now we're going to make our four blocks that are our neck blocks. Here's an example of that. Again, this is glued up with three pieces so that it fits right onto the mortise. I mean, this mortise fits right onto this tenon. Now I want to orient the grain on these blocks so that the grain is running horizontally. The long grain is running horizontally. That leaves the end grain on these two sides, which nothing gets glued to. End grain is not a good glue surface. You want to always glue long grain to long grain. In this case, here's our long grain running that way. Our sides are going to get glued onto that. That holds our sides. And this is long grain as well, and that holds our top and the back in place. So we're never gluing our top or back or our sides to end grain in this case. So that's how you want to orient your three pieces as you lay this out to cut it out. Now I cut this block 3 inches always, no matter which guitar I'm doing. I'd start with a 3-inch block, and then depending on my tenon, I want to match that with this space in here. So the first thing I'm going to do is take a piece of material, in this case some of my mahogany. I've got a straight line here to start with, and then I'm going to go over 3 inches here. So I'm going to make a couple lines to work off of that line to be 3 inches, and that's going to be my main piece of my block, the part that people see. So I'll cut that out, and then I'll come back and cut those two pieces. By the way, I want to make a mark in the center of this, which is 1.5 inches, obviously, so that I have a reference to the center of my block. So I'm going to go over here and cut this out. I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got my block. It's, again, my long grain is running horizontally. My end grain is on both sides of that. So that's what it's going to look like when you look inside the guitar. You'll see it'll look like just a solid block. Not that we're trying to fool anybody, but it's a nice appearance. Nobody will be able to see around either one of these corners unless they put a mirror inside the guitar to notice there's another piece behind it. Now I've marked the center of this block, and I've marked a center point on the tenon. So now I can match those two things up like so, and I can come in here now and draw this line. So now I've got roughly where my tenon is going to be. So now I'm going to cut out two pieces more that are going to get glued like so, and then that's going to be my mortise. So let me get these two pieces cut out, again with the grain running horizontally here, and so I've always got glue surfaces that are long grain to long grain. Okay, so here's my block. Let's go in this away. Centered it. I made my marks. I cut my two pieces here. And again, use your ruler, figure out what you want to cut. I don't mind this being a little wide and overhanging there a bit, because I can come back and just trim that with my bandsaw, and then I'm going to show you how I sand these and finish them off when they're done. But now with those two lines I can line, I've got a glue surface that shows where my two pieces should get glued at, and thus leaving my centered mortise. So let's glue these up. I like to use these spring clamps for these. So I just put a couple on each side. I'm just following my line here. These things really slide around when you start putting them on. So just, you know, work it until you're right where you want to be on your line. Come on. See, that slid right off the line. So I'm going to move it back. This guy's in the way. There we go. Perfect. Good. Now put another one on here. I try that to get that to stay on my line. There we go. That looks pretty good there. Now we'll do this one. Stay there. So that looks pretty good. I'm on my lines. There's my center mark. Now, a good idea is take a piece of just a scrap and fit it in there and see if it fits good. This doesn't have to be tight here. Nothing about this is critical. All the action is against these shoulders. When you've got these two bolts here, pulling that into these two shoulders. The rest of this, it's not something that's going to be used to keep our neck pitch, our yaw left to right, our set up and back. This doesn't get affected by that. This is where the action is on these two shoulders. And so if this is not tight in there, it's fine as long as it's, I mean, it doesn't want to be sloppy, but it doesn't have to be tight. So don't worry about that aspect to this. So there you go. There's going to be the mortise and tenon for this block and this neck. So I'm going to mark them as a pair. So this is, I'm calling B13, meaning it's a 13 fret. It was one of two. I'm going to mark this as B13 as well. So there we go. So this block matches this neck. Now go ahead and build the other three blocks, each one for a particular neck, and then we'll have this little bit of business done. The last thing let's talk about, though, is our end block. So now we've got our neck blocks, but we need a piece that's glued at the butt end of the guitar, where the sides come around and get glued at the very end. I find stuff laying around my shop. I use it all the time. This was a piece of pine. I don't even care that the grain line's going horizontally. It was an old, hard, dried piece of pine. And I did this just as an example, but I would use that. It'd be fine. Here's another, and again, 3 inches. This one's about 2 3/4 inches. Old board of pine. It's got nail holes in it, but I can cut out a nice piece of for my end block there. That'd be 3/4 inch thick. It's going to be, again, 2 3/4 to 3 inches, someplace in there is fine, and this would work. Now, the disadvantage here, actually, on this one, the advantage here with the grain running this way is now I've got long grain to glue to, and that's what I want. This one, if I used it this way, it would be end grain that my top and back would be glued to, and I don't really want that. Consequently, it's not tall enough to give me the height I need, which in the case of the Nick Lucas was 4.5 inches. So I need to be at least 4.5 inches with my grain running horizontally. Now, one thing I use a lot, this is a piece of 1/2 inch ply. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 ply, and it's got a nice surface on one side, rougher on the back side. But I like using this stuff. Again, it's a 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be a full 3/4 inch. This is just where it's just to hold your glued sides that come around to the bottom of the guitar. If you think about the glue surface, this is actually every bit as wide as your linings are going to be. So it's probably even a little wider than what you're going to end up with your curved linings. So a 1/2 inch is fine. Anything between a 1/2 and 3/4 for that end block is fine. I like things that are light, so I don't mind a 1/2 inch because it's going to be a little less heavy than otherwise. The nice thing about this is no matter which surface you glue to, it's a good glue surface because they're running different directions, so it's not like you have to worry about that. So I could cut this out horizontally or I could cut it out vertically. It doesn't really matter. So in this case, all I'm going to do is cut out a block that I'm going to start with 4 3/4 inches, and then I'll cut that down as I get ready to glue the block in to where I finally know exactly what I want it to be for this particular guitar. And so I'll cut that again 3 inches one way, about 4 3/4 the other way, and that then will be my end block. So I'm going to cut this out, and then I'm going to show you how I finish off these end blocks. Okay, so this is my block. It's 3 inches. This is about 4 3/4 inch. I'm leaving myself a little room at this point because I'm going to show you how I'll get back to my final dimension as we get ready to glue it into the sides. But I don't need to do that right now. But here's how I finish this off. I'll take my back side and finish it, sand it flat, just so I have a good glue surface. A good glue surface for my sides are going to come in glue to that. Here's the piece that'll be on the inside. So now I like to take these and roll these corners. See how nice that corner looks? Again, I'm going to roll that this way. Do the other side. So now you can see I've got a nice profile on that block. Again, I'll cut it down to the final dimensions as we get there, but that's a quick and easy way to make it look really nice. And that's so there's my end block for one of my two Nick Lucas guitars. Now, the neck block, we're going to do the same thing. Here, I haven't kept my final dimensions on this yet, but I'll just show you how to round these over. I'll flatten it. And then I'm going to roll this as well. So there you go. I don't know if you can quite see that, but it's got a nice detail on it now, and I'll sand that a little bit more. But when you look in your sound hole, that's what you're going to see, and you'll see it have a nice rounded edge on it. Nobody's going to be able to see this line because you would have to put a mirror in there to see that inside the sound hole. So it looks like a solid block of mahogany, but it's made out of 3 pieces with our mortise, ready to go, match up perfectly with our necks. So that's the necks and the blocks. And next we're going to start bracing our tops and backs. Hope that made sense. Okay kids, if you like and use or find these videos interesting, educational, informative, or maybe just entertaining because you're up late at night, we'd love to have you support us. There's a few ways you can do that. One is click the subscribe button below. That helps YouTube know what we're doing and that we're serious about this. Also, you can hit that bell icon, which tells you when the next videos are coming out. We're gonna try and get at least one out a week now that we're up and running here. Also, a good way to support us is become a patron over at our Patreon account, and again there's a link below for that. Patreon's a cool way that you can sign up and give, you know, $5 a month or $10 or whatever you feel is worth it. If you're using these videos to actually build a guitar and find it interesting and fun, please support us through Patreon. That's you know, I wish I could do this completely for free, but it takes money and time away from my other regular job. So, you know, it's a big undertaking, and any support you could send this way is great. So, you know, it's all been very fun so far for me, and I hope you guys are having fun at this as well, and we greatly appreciate all your support, so thanks.